So in this video, we'll see about connector rules. So we have some set of connector rules like pre-iterate, post-iterate, build map, JDBC, SAP, PeopleSoft, web service, before and after operation rule, and all. So in this video, I will go through like pre-iterate, build map, post-iterate, web service after and before operation, and build map rule. So during the aggregation, usually during aggregation, this rule will be executed. Like let's say we are aggregating some delimited file. Um, then any operation we need to do it before we convert the map into object, so we can utilize these connector rules. Like let's say if you want to check whether file is present or not, or if you want to store last aggregation, before aggregation details and all, you can do it in the pre-iteration rule. In the build map rule, if you want to convert any incoming data from a flat file, you can convert it. Like let's say if you want to uh, modify some data, like let's say the group provided in the file is in it's separated with some delimiters, like let's say comma or slash, anything. So you can convert it and you can store it in the map. Then IIQ will like convert it into the resource object in the aggregation rule. Then the rest of the things happens. So in the pre-iterate rule, we get the data, means the file will be provided to the IIQ, like the connector will pass the file. Then you can check whether file is present or not, whether it's modified or not. Those things you can do it in the pre-iterate rule. In the post-iterate rule, you can, if you want, you can delete the files and all. And in build map rule, like as I mentioned, you can build the map, like whatever the data you incoming data, you can modify it if you have any requirement. So likewise, web service applications. So when you hit any endpoint, and if you want to do anything before operation, like before deleting, means how web service application goes is like you have to specify a operation for each. Like you have to specify some operation, like you have to build some operation for aggregation, group aggregation, creation, deletion, or modification. So if you want to call any rule before any specific operation, like if you want to call any rule during creation or updating any attribute, you can call this rule. And again, same thing for after operation rule. So let's go through some like basic examples which I have here. So in the post iterate rule, as I mentioned, what I am doing here is what this rule is doing here is like it is just getting the latest file. So it's a simple Java code. So how it happens is, you can see um, stats, like let's see what are the inputs first. So as you know, like we have log and context by default. Then the pre-iterate rule is basically for delimited files. So the input will be like application, schema, and stats. So the application, what the application we are aggregating, the schema representation, and the stats, so which contains file name of the file about to be processed, absolute path, length, and last modified. So usually when you aggregate, the aggregation date which happened, like will be stored it in the application, so that you can get and you can see, you can compare, like let's say if you have aggregated a delimited file today, tomorrow you can check when was the last it got aggregated, and you can check the file and you can see when the file got modified. If the file is not modified since the last aggregation, then you can ignore the aggregations. It's depending upon requirement. Let's say you aggregated today and tomorrow, while aggregation, you can check whether the file, the delimited file, is modified or not. You can check using last modified. Yeah. So as I mentioned, the stats will have absolute path, file name. So here I'll get the absolute path, the full path, file name. Then I'll get the directory path. I'll remove the file name. So what I'm doing here is I'm just getting the latest file. So usually you get the absolute path, remove the file name. So you'll have a directory path where the file is placed. Then iterate all the files in the directory. Then check when it got last modified, like latest file, get the latest file. That's the only thing what we are doing here. Like I'll get the directory path. I'll replace the file name with empty so that I will get only the directory path. So the file name will be cleared using this command. So absolute path dot replace is a string command in the string method in Java. So just to replace anything which is passed, like file name is there. So file name will be replaced with empty string. Latest file name means I will have some a variable create a string variable created, the latest file name. Directory, so I will get the file means file. This again, this is Java class, not a SailPoint one. So directory and list file. So I will be storing the list of files into the file array. Then I will be iterating it through the file. Before that, date. Then if directory not equal to null, as I mentioned, the basic first thing which we have to do is make sure that any variable you are using in the code, check the null before utilizing it. So I'll be iterating through the file now. Each file, I'll get the first file. File name contains file without extension to the lowercase. If the file name matches, check the last modified and date after temporary date means I'm just doing like get the latest file. Temp date means if it is after that, like I'll get the latest file itself. So if file is file means like whatever the file I'm getting, whether it is file or not, then date dot after temp date. If it is temporary date after date, like let's say I have two files, I'll check uh, first file now. So if the modification of the file is after the current date, then I will store it in the temp date and I'll get the latest file name. That's how I'm doing. Like I'll comparing the date. Like if I had two files, as I mentioned, one file is yesterday's, and if the latest file will be today's one, right? So I will check like file one and file two. File one is yesterday's one. File two is today's one. So I will compare whether the last modified is after or not. If it is after, then I will consider it as the latest file. So this is about pre-iterate rule. Like this, there will be a variable. There will be a class called custom global. So if you want to store anything, you can store in custom global. It's not custom object. It's a custom global class. So you can store last modified. If you want to update, if you want to store something, you can store it in pre-iterate rule. And the same custom global can be used in the uh, post-iterate rule. So the rule flow will be like first it will if you have any pre-iterate rule configured, the IIQ during aggregation pre-iterate rule will be triggered first, then build map rule, then post iterate rule. This is the flow actually. It means it goes like pre-iterate, build map and post iterate rule. And all these three pre-iterate, post-iterate and build map is for delimited file only. For JDBC we have again JDBC build map. SAP we have SAP build map. So for all the logic will be similar, like the flow will be similar. Like in the build map rule, like we will get the file. um I already made the video and it is in the YouTube. So we have this delimited file connector dot default build map. We pass columns and records and we'll create a map. So in build map rule, the input will be application other than context and log. The input will be application schema, state, reward, record and columns. So record and columns, each columns and the record schema will be there stat. So usually in the build map rule, we'll get the columns and the record, and we have a default class which API like which we use to create the map. With that map, we'll do whatever the things we want to do. So as I mentioned, let's say in the column, if I have the column will be name. comma group. I'm just giving you an example. Name, again, it will be employee number, and let's say the group is like group 1 hyphen group 2 to hyphen group 3. So let's say this is the case. If the group provided in the file is in this format, and if you pass it to IAQ, you have to separate it and pass it as a list of string or a string array. So for that you need to separate it or split it based on some delimiter which there in the file. So let's say in this I have given comma, I will be giving hyphen here. So what happens is, during execution of this rule, this name will be stored with three groups using the split. So I'll be passing group, right? So you can consider here. First step, create the map with a default class and APIs. Process the account schema dot get object type compared to, means if the account type is object. If we are aggregating an account, then get the map, and the column will be group. So I got this row, this data now, then the group name, if it is not equal to null and not empty, then split on this. So what happens is, it will split it to group 1, group 2, group 3, and it will store to the string. So items will means the user will have three groups now, and I will add it to the groups, and again I will replace this group with these groups. So now instead of a single string, I will have a list of three groups, or a string array of three groups. So this is what I am doing in the build map rule. So similar way, if you want to convert anything in IIQ, which we got from our data, so we can do it in build map rule. This is a simple example. So if you want to convert anything, you can do it in build map rule. The thing which we want to make sure is this one will be default, like we have to specify this. We'll get the map. So the data will be like this, means let's say you have hundreds of entries, and if you want to convert anything, let's say the input data will be active. If you want to make it means, let's say the provided input is true false, the status will be true false. If you want to convert the true false into the string, like if the user status is true, and you can convert it to active in the build map rule. The same thing can be done in customization rule, but we can utilize build map rule as well. Then comes the post iterate rule. Again, the input will be application schema stat. We don't have any input. In case of build map rule, we had input output. That's the return argument is map. So the map which we have created, which we received, and which we are returning it will be same, but we are modifying the incoming data. In the post iterate rule, like I'm just deleting the file. Like as I mentioned here, in the pre-iterate rule, we got the latest file. In the post-iterate rule, if you want to delete after aggregating, you can utilize the same thing. So object type, you can get, if object type is account, for every aggregation there will be object type. During group aggregation it will be group, during account aggregation it will be account. Get the path. If path not equal to null, path exists, you can print the things file. If file exists, delete it. That's what we are doing here. Like once aggregation is done, you can delete the file. The same thing can be done in object type group. So if you want to do anything, like if you want to get the latest aggregation, how much account got aggregated, those things you can, means if you want to store it, if you want to send email, those things you can do. Like let's say if you want to archive the file and place it to some archive folder, you can do it here. And anything after aggregation, you can do things in the post iterate rule. So in the pre-iterate, I got the latest file. In the post-iterate rule, I will be deleting the file after aggregation. Means I will be deleting only if file exists. Then comes a web service before end operation rule. With this, we have a transformation rule, merge rule, and all. But in most cases, we will be using build map rule. and in some cases we'll be using pre-iterate and post-iterate rule as well. But web service before operation and after operation, like before operation will be most used, like let's say if you want to create a JSON object, you can, or if you want to modify anything in the endpoint, you can do it in before operation rule. So usually before operation rule will have input as application, request endpoint, hold response, REST client, endpoint, updated endpoint you need to send. So any the use cases will be, let's say, you will be having a single endpoint for creation, updating identity, or modifying update identity. Uh, while modifying identity, you have to get the existing group or role details. Means for that application, let's say user has two groups and you are adding a new group to the user. For that you need to get existing user and add it to existing user. Means if you want to add a new group to the user, first you want to get the existing group and add it to that existing list. So for that you need to do some modification in the, means you can do it in the before operation rule. That is like get the existing assignment for a particular application and add it to the list, and that list you need to convert it as a JSON array and pass it to the or add it to the JSON object and add it to endpoint. That's the one use case usually people do. Or before operation rule, you can build the uh, means you can get the API tokens. You can build like tokens and all. We can build in web service before operation rule. In this, just like I'm modifying the current body, like I'm replacing, means let's say there will be a plan, given name, family name, or email. I will be modifying with a old response map. Means here first I will get the old response map, get email, current body. Means as I mentioned, we have a request endpoint. With that request endpoint, get body and get JSON body, and we have to modify the existing JSON body, and the modified JSON body has to be added back to endpoint. And how we have to add? We have to create a new map with a JSON body and body format. That map need to set to request endpoint, and that endpoint need to be passed or returned. Here the like first I'll get the JSON body, and means it's just an sample example. Like you can modify anything. You can completely create a new JSON body, as I mentioned. In case of uh, in case if you want to pass a group for modification with existing groups, we can do these things. So here, like let's say the JSON body contains plan, given name, family, and email. I will be updating those things. Which like how a web service application happens is there will be operation for each um, like how account repression or account request operation will be there, right? Like delete, create, and all. So for same thing in the web service applications, we need to specify each operation. We have to create an operation called create, delete, and all. And for each operation there will be endpoint, and we have to pass the body, and in that body we have to create a JSON thing, and we have to pass the plan. In the plan, let's say we have email, name, groups need to be added, modified. If you want to disable the user, those things we need to create in the plan itself. Like in the plan we have to pass, and then we have to create a JSON body, and the response has to be attached to the operation, each web service operation. So in the plan given, so if you want to modify anything, you can modify it in before operation rule. So this is about before operation rule. Then the last one will be the web service after operation rule. Let's say if you are having a pagination, you can do things here. Like the same thing, we'll get endpoint, processed response object, raw response object, REST client, update account group list. So here what I am doing is I'll get the things like processed response object size, fetch record count. then get offset and total from a response. So parser, JSON response, raw response object, offset value and total completed data, like total filter. So I'll be creating offset long, total filter wrong. So I'll be creating one long. Then the new start will be the next page. Let's say first page we have like pushed or got 1 to 0, 1 to 50. Then from 51 the next page will start. So the total filter will be 50, 50 plus 1, we can say 51. It starts with 51. So new start will be 51, then has more, new start is lesser than total string, has more is true. Then I will be adding transition value. So that transition value, I'll be getting transition value. Application dot get attribute value from transition values, like set has more flag and store the new offset value. Has more will set to true, then offset value. Transition value put offset and the offset new start which we have got. So this is for pagination you can use. In newer version of SailPoint, we have option for pagination, so we can utilize that as well. In this case, if you want to modify anything, you can do it in web service after operation rule. So this is about connector rule. With this, as I mentioned, we have a couple other rules, but like largely used connector rule are pre-trade, post-trade, build map, web service, before and after operation rule. So in this video, we'll see some of aggregation or refresh rules in IIQ. So these are all executed after connector rules sends the object. Like once connector rules is executed, like I have shown in the previous video, like what are the connector rules and how it is executed or what it returns. So connector rule will usually return objects, resource object, then aggregation rules will pick it, and depending upon the requirement, we can utilize it and we can modify the resource objects. So again, in the connector rules, we have seen it's like goes in a sequential order, like pre-iterate, build map, post-iterate, or other as well. But in aggregation rule also the same thing goes, like first aggregate a resource object customization rule we executed, that is customization rule, then correlation, then creation. So this is the sequential order. Then we have a couple of rules like uh, aggregation rules, refresh rules, and all. And we have manage attribute rules, like if you want to modify any account groups, that is like entitlements or manage attribute, you can utilize that. So here, customization rule. So it's a simple one. I already made a video on customization rule, but this video is for all aggregation rule. Like I have for 6-7 aggregation rules here. So in one video I have covered all the aggregation rules, and like these are the use cases which we see in regular basis. Like let's say you are onboarding some delimited file or um, web service applications. So like IAQ doesn't know how to, like whether it's need to disable the identity or not. Like for um, Active Directory or LDAP applications, some of the applications IIQ can identify whether user is disabled or not. There are some disabled or inactive attributes, but some of the application like web service ADBC or delimited applications, IIQ can't identify or can't make like whether the user is disabled or not. Like there is a attribute called IIQ disabled, which you see it from UI. Like when you open any identity from identity warehouse in the account tab, so you'll see some set of applications assigned to the user, like some sort of accounts are assigned to the users, like AD applications, JDBC applications, or web service applications. So there will be a status thing, like whether like red is for disabled or inactive, or green is for active one. So those things can be modified in customization rule. Like if the incoming data, like you can check what are the um, status attributes for that application. Let's say for one application, let's say the JDBC application, there is a attribute or there is a column called enabled. So if user is enabled, the value will be true. If user is disabled, value will be false. Like active, like maybe from the web service application, there will be option called or attribute called is enabled. So if the value is true, you can set IAQ disabled option. So this IAQ disabled is a link object, like account object. You can modify that. So how we get the input is like, as I mentioned, we'll get a object, application, connector, and state. The return will be again resource object itself. So we just need to modify, or we just need to update anything from incoming data. So it goes for each object, like it will check whether the incoming object, if the object is account, you can also can specify here like account object is an account group or account or group or not. And again, you can check the means null check and check the attribute whether the attribute has object has that attribute called enabled. If these two matches, then check get the attribute and assign it to some string or boolean. You can do it anything. So what I'm exactly doing here is like get the attribute, whatever the attribute, it differs from applications to application. Object dot get attribute, like enabled attribute, it might be active, enabled, is enabled, or anything. It's a status object. So if the status is active, then set IAQ disabled to false or else true. So if let's say the status attribute is active, so you can make changes like enabled equals active. So then set the IAQ disabled to false. Means we are just setting IAQ disabled object here. So attribute here. Like this we can modify anything, like let's say if you want to modify incoming you data's dates and date format, you can change that also. We can do it from identity attribute as well, but this particular option IAQ disabled, we can't modify from identity attribute. It's a link object. So using customization rule, we can modify this is about customization rule. And again, let's say user is like all the customization is done, then IAQ will check a means go for correlation. There is a correlation option, like UI option. If you want to use multiple options for correlating, you can utilize correlation rule. So if correlation won't happen, IAQ go for creation. Again, we have creation rule for it. If user is already like exist, it will correlate. Otherwise, we can create the account. So here again, it might look big, but it's a simple one. Like what we are doing is, so usually in the creation, let's say user is not present in IAQ. So what I am doing is I'll create the user in IAQ with a short name. So I use usually every application has a short name. You can have a short name like let's say the application is XYZ. I can have a short name as XYZ itself, or let's say application is some Active Directory application, I can give a short name as AD. So how creation will happen is AD and the name of the user. So username will be AD in creator. So what I'm it is, let's say short name. So short name of application will be AD. Then username will be whatever it is. You can give employee number. Let's say if it's so the user creation name will be like this. This is how I will create a user, so that it will help me to search for users. So I will, if I want to get all the users under any application, what I will do is I will just search the users. I'll go to identity warehouse. So I'll search with AD. So I will get all the users under or orphan users under AD application. So short name can be anything. I'm just giving example for if the application name is Active Directory. You can specify anything in the application. So you have to go to application object from the debug page. You can specify a short name there. So usually what I am doing is I'm getting, so for correlation again, input will be link, account, application, environment. The return will be identity name, identity attribute name and value. So I can pass identity name, I can pass whole identity itself. I can pass identity name and identity value. What is the identity name and value of it? You can see here like I'm passing identity, whole identity itself. Otherwise, we can pass identity name as well. Like here, I can give identity name. I can give identity name. I can pass the identity name. So IAQ will find it. So yeah, the first thing what I'm doing is I'm getting the short name, correlation key, and UID. So next name, if short name not equal to null name, I'm searching, like I'm adding the filter ignore case, name, short name plus hyphen UID. As I mentioned here, this is the case. So IAQ will search, is there any user with this short name and UID, whatever be the UID. Again, correlation key is not equal to null. Usually some application will have correlation key. In that case, we can use these things. And we can check UID correlation key, employee number correlation key. Means if that correlation key matches any one of this, we'll get the user. Then again, I'll be searching for secondary accounts. Some applications will have secondary accounts, like from, let's say, it has service accounts or admin accounts like that. So which ends with a PA or anything which it's a secondary account. We'll fetch that as well and assign to the user itself. Then first thing I will be doing is like I'll be building the filter. I'm adding the filter to the query option, then searching the identity class. So if I get any identity correlation map, that is the map which we are passing. So we have to pass these things like identity name. Identity name we have to pass. Here I'm passing identity. Then target identity I am passing. So this is what I am doing. So you can do anything, like you can add only these things, like check the user based on UID, employee number, or email. If it's matching, any one of these are matching, you can get the user. Sometimes you need to filter out for a couple of things. You can use this, like if you want to add for secondary accounts, you can do this. Like usually Active Directory applications will have a secondary account. You can correlate those users to existing account using correlation rule. If the account is not correlated, IAQ will go for creation. If there is no creation is specified, no creation rule is specified, account will be created with the native identity itself. Like let's say native identity is employee name, it will create with employee name. If the native identity is username, ID, anything, it will create with that. So as I mentioned, the logic which I am doing or I am following for creating orphan account will be short name and UID. So I will be creating with app short name and UID. So this is what I am doing. So if app short name is not equal to null, means if it is equal to null, I'm just passing UID. If app short name has something, like as I mentioned, if the short name is AD, means if the short name for Active Directory is AD, and UID means, as I mentioned, UID will be anything like user ID or employee number, whatever it is. So I'll be setting the identity name. You can do it from here. So I'll be passing identity, set attribute, employee type, service. Means if the employee type is service, you can do it here. The same thing can be done from customization rule as well. So the IAQ will create an account with a name, short name hyphen UID. Otherwise, it will directly create with UID if there is no short name. And let's say if you're not configured creation rule, the format which IAQ follows is for the creation of identities UID itself. Whatever the native identity which we have specified in the schema. Then there are a couple of rules like or some of rules like account selector rule. So this case, like when we can use account selector rule, let's say you have a bundle or you have an entitlement. So it will for a role itself. Let's say you have a role and user will be having multiple accounts for a single application. Let's say it's for Active Directory. Usually for Active Directory we'll have a admin account as well, a couple of admin accounts. So in that case we have to use account selector. Let's say you are trying to submit, or if user is trying to submit an um, a role which requires admin account, so you can specify that through account selector rule, saying select admin account. Or you can specify what account need to be selected for any role. Let's say if user has, like in some cases, some application user will have multiple accounts. So when user try to select any role, and if it is specified to that application, that particular application which has multiple accounts for a user, it will prompt, means IAQ will provide a prompt to the user, and user need to select. Instead of user selecting, we can do it through account selector rule. That is, we can pass the link of the user, so that user no need to select it while submitting the request. So in this case what I am doing is I'm just selecting a user. So first I will, the input for this rule is source, the application doing the provisioning, like role, identity, application, links, true if not the first assignment, provisioning project, account request, allow create, true if account creation is allowed, and selection will be the link. So what I'm doing is as I mentioned, there are a couple of cases, like first thing will be as a select required link. One case, as I mentioned, account admin accounts. So if user has admin accounts or secondary accounts, you can specify those things. Here I'm just checking SAM account name, identity get name, and SAM account name. Then based on that SAM account name, if the EAD, like identity get name, I am checking, get the primary inside one, get AD primary link. Here I'm just passing primary link. If the EID and the SAM account matches, I will be passing the or sending the link. The same way what I'm doing is, like we can do is like links. We can go through all the links, like loop through the links. Then if links native identity, here you can see attribute. The same thing you can get, like link dot get attribute SAM account name. Usually for admin account, SAM account name will be different, and the primary account SAM account name will be different. So usually, the as I mentioned, there will be a format, like it contains some extra character at the end, or it's a prefix or suffix happens, like admin uh, with SAM account name. Admin will be added like A P S or something like that. So in that those cases, you can retrieve the attribute SAM account name, and if the SAM account name contains or if the link is admin account link, then pass that admin account link. That thing can be done in the account selection rule. This is just to pass the primary link. And there are other rule called group aggregation refresh rule. So during the aggregation, we can use this rule, like one way is manage attribute during aggregation. If you want to set any manage attribute as a non-requestable, so if you want to set requestable to the false, you have to specify the manage attribute promotion in aggregation rule, and this is in the task definition. This we need to specify in the task definition, but manage attribute promotion rule can be set in application configuration rule itself. So the customization, creation, correlation, manage attribute, and manager correlation need to be set in application configuration itself. Group selection, group refresh, group aggregation refresh, account selector are a separate entity. Like we have to specify this in role, this in task definition. So here the same thing can be done, as I mentioned, like requestable set to false. So here this can be used as a generic one. We can use this for any rule or any application. But this is again a group refresh rule. Here what I am doing is I'm again checking the managed attribute. Whatever the account group we got, like in refresh rule, usually it will be account group. That's a managed attribute. and application. So return will be account group itself. So first we'll get the account group, that is the entitlement or managed attribute, and search that managed attribute in the IAQ. That's what I am doing. So we can have means here I'll be having custom name. So for those custom list, I don't want to set it as a requestable. So that also you can do. If you do this, it will set a requestable to the false for all the entitlements. If you want to set requestable false for specific entitlements, you can use the custom file, or you can use this group aggregation refresh rule, and you can set those things in group thing. So the same thing can be done here. You can iterate, or you can have a custom, and only for those things you can do it here. But again, in the refresh rule, there are other things which can be done, like means the difference between those things are like this happens only during creation, and this group refresh every time this will happen. Again, if you want to set, you can check the task definition, last execution states, and you can see whether the modification happened after creation or before, like after creation. What you can do is you can get the task results of previous task results, then check whether the creation happened after that, or you can check whether the existing values and all in the group refresh rule, group aggregation refresh. That is like, let's say once you have modified, means once you have set to false, or the requestable, if you have set to false, and for some reason if you want to make it, or if you want to enable it, and if you don't want to set false for enable or existing and account groups, that is manage attribute, you can have the conditions here, but you can't do those things here in the requestable or in the managed attribute promotion. So there's a difference here. So for the use case is like, let's say there is a requirement to enable requestable for some of the managed attributes, and you have enabled it, and after group refresh again it will set it to false if you don't add conditions like check the creation modification date of entitlements and all. So you have to check the modification of managed attributes depending upon modification. If the task is executing after modification, so don't set the requestable. So those things can be done in group refresh rule. So here I'm just setting requestable false. What we can do is we can set the description, we can set the owner. If the owner is null, you can specify those things in these rules. The use case will be, as I mentioned, setting the requestable itself, and not overwriting modified manage attributes. And there is a rule called refresh rule. So in this rule, I'm just clearing the sticky bits, like there are some assignments which will be it will stay with a user, like it's a dummy things, like we call it as a sticky one. So if user has any assignments which are not required, we can nullify it. Like if the link, if user is not having any specified link for those applications, let's say if user having some of the assignments, but account is not assigned to the user, those things can be set to null. So we can set a native identity for those assignments to the null, so it will clear those things from the user. The example will be user is not having active directory application, but active directory entitlements will be assigned to the user. So in that case, what we have to do is loop through those things, loop through all the links of the user, check whether user has active directory application. In this case, what I'm checking is get link. Okay, how I can come, like first I will initialize identity service, then I will get the assignments, all the assignments for the user, check whether user has any assignments or not, loop through the assignments, then get the attribute assignment, get the app of that attribute assignment. Let's say if it is active directory, it will get the active directory application we will get. Then instance native identity we will get. Then with that native identity and instance and the app, we will search the identity service. Using identity service, you can get the link of that user for that particular application and native identity. If it's not there, if there is no um, link for a specific application native identity, then nullify it. Nullify that assignment using native identity null, so that it will clear that sticky entitlements, so that user won't be having um, unwanted assignments. This we can do it from refresh rule. Yeah, I guess all the things are done. This is one of other identity creation role. If you want to create a user, if you want to assign new UIDs, you want to assign password and all, you can use this thing. So I will be adding all the rules links in the, means all the rules are in my Git repository. My Git repository's link will be attached to the description. Though you think you can copy this, you can model this, and you can execute in your local environment, and you can verify the rules. Yeah, this is all about aggregation rules. I have covered almost like all the rules. I guess maybe I have left manager correlation. It's a similar to user correlation. You have to pass the identity name of the manager. So yeah, this is all about aggregation rule. So in this video, I'll go through a provisioning rule. We have before provisioning, after provisioning, JDBC provisioning, JDBC global provisioning, and all. So I already made this video. This is like a collective, like it has all the rules in a single video. And again, I will go through with other cases as well. Like usually, like most of the times, we use before provisioning and after provisioning rule in most of the applications. Okay, so and I will give some other examples as well, like what are the other use cases which we come across for using these rules. Yeah, first one will be before provisioning rule. So before using this rule, we need to understand the provisioning plan and what it contains. Like every plan will have account request will have attribute request, and every plan will have operation, and account request will have operations. So the plan operation is the attribute request operations. So in the before provisioning rule or after provisioning rule, like in the before provisioning, it depends upon the account request itself. Like first we need to get the list of account request for a plan. Again, the input for this rule is plan and application. First we'll get the plan. With that plan, we will get the native identity and account request. So the use cases for before provisioning rule is like, let's say the condition will be like, or the requirement will be, you need to you need to provision some AD groups for some application. Let's say there is an application um, called Jira or Atlassian application. For that application, to need, like if user need to have the Jira application, user should have a Active Directory group as well. Some of the Active Directory groups or default group, maybe Okta groups, or some groups need to be provisioned to that user, so that user can access the portal or any application portal. So if that user need to have, or whenever you create a user, or before creation of that user, make sure that user has some XYZ DD group, that you can do it in before provisioning rule. Okay, let's say you are creating user, and check the user access, whether user has AD group or not. If user is not having AD group, assign it. That you can do be in the before provisioning rule. If you want to modify anything, there are some use cases, like whenever um, right, user submit the request. Okay, user submit for request for some application, and the user is not having access to that application. What I could do is, it will create the account in that application. So create operation will be triggered. Let's say you have submitted two entitlement requests for some application, and IAQ has triggered create operation for both. Okay, and the perform maintenance task executed within that uh, like perform maintenance task is executed, and both the request got processed in that same time frame, then what happens is the second request might fail because the first one will create the account and second one will also try to create, and it will say account is already exist. Means I have seen these kind of cases like when the user is not having entitlement, or user is not having application itself, and he's trying to submit request for that application. IAQ will trigger or launch a create operation first, right? So for both the request, IAQ will trigger create operation. Means what I'm saying is whenever user submit request in the same time frame, let's say if I submit two requests now, and approval happens in like within same 1 or 2 minutes itself, and probably perform maintenance task is executed, so that like within that time frame request got processed, the both the requests are create now, so it might feel like one request might file saying account is already created, so create can't be triggered. So in those cases what you can do is you can check the things in before provisioning rule, but you can check before provisioning, check user is already having the account, so that you can modify the account request operation to modify instead of create. So these are the things you can do it in before operation rule. Here what I am doing is I'm just checking the passed attributes has value or not. If there is no if the value is empty, update it with actual value and all. So I'm getting the list of account requests, then looping through those account requests, and for each account request, get the operation. If the operation is modify, disable, enable, or delete, check the email, given name, family name, and group. So based on those things, update the value. Like set operation is disabled. Again, you can do those things. You can modify the operations. Um, if the operation is modified disable, like you can modify the operations, then set the attribute value. So attribute value will be created, and I will be setting email to account request. So if the account request has some attribute and attribute value is missing, you can update those things if the operation are specified in this list. So this is one of the use cases, and other use cases I already mentioned. Then goes like after provisioning rule. In after provisioning rule, like whenever so the both the things, like let's say you have created the plan and you have triggered a provisioning. So provisioning of that plan. So before provisioning and after provisioning, this rule will be executed for any application. Means all the applications will have before provisioning and after provisioning rule. And in the before provisioning, like before any group or any operation is happening on that account for that particular application, before provisioning rule will be triggered. The same like after provisioning rule will be triggered after the provisioning of any entitlements or any operations like delete, delete, enable anything. After a provisioning rule will be triggered. So in some cases, like you might need to send email to the manager or a user saying your account has been created. Follow these steps to access the site or application or whatever it is. You can use after provisioning rule. Like if the account request is create and account is got created, then you can trigger the email. The same follows here. Like you need to get the account request list. If the account request account request operation is create, then send the email and get the identity with the plan. And you need to use send email uh, method to trigger the email and all. And for triggering any email, you need to set the arguments and use send email notification, pass the template and email options. Email will be triggered. This is one of the use case. Like you can means in some cases we can send password as well as an email. And if you want to modify anything after provisioning, let's say there are some cases, again you have to provisioning, you have to do provisioning, you have to set the identity attributes, you have to audit the logs. Means in some cases you can do um, these are the use cases. Like I have seen sending password, sending email, and provisioning some entitlements for some applications after provisioning of any accounts entitlements you can do. Means for like whenever you provisioning you do provision for any application, xyz application, you need to add AD group or any groups after provisioning itself. Like before, means let's say you have provisioned some AD groups, and during provisioning of that XYZ application got failed. So then it won't make any sense. So after provisioning, you can set the things again in the after provisioning rule. You maybe expiration also you can add. There are a number of cases. These are the uh, largely used use cases um, for after provisioning rule. Again, we have two provisioning rules for JDBC. So for JDBC application, we need to specify this, otherwise provisioning won't happen. For other application, before provisioning and after provisioning is not required. Without before and after provisioning, provisioning will happen. IAQ will take care. For any other applications like Active Directory or LDAP, delimited finding, how provisioning won't be there. IAQ has, means there are some application where we need to specify provisioning like JDBC, and we have SAP, PeopleSoft and all, and web service application also you need to specify operations. But a rule we need to specify for JDBC, SAP and PeopleSoft. So here what we need to do is like we have two options. Either you can have a single JDBC global rule where you can specify for all the operations, or you can have a single based rule, like operation based rule, like for create one rule, disable, modify, update. For each operation you can have a single rule. So here it's a JDBC operation rule. In JDBC operation rule we have to initialize SQL query, and for SQL query you need to add required parameters. What are the things which you need to insert into the table, and you need to add this. Like what I am doing is I'll be creating prepare statement. For that prepare statement we need to pass the parameters. In this case I'm passing username, first name, last name, all the required things for creation. The same thing can be done for deletion, modification thing. It all depends upon the query which we use. For that query we need to pass some parameters like arguments, and we need to build those arguments. Like what I'm doing here is I'm just creating some SQL query, and I'm getting identity using plan. And for from that identity I'm getting user ID, first name, last name, email, display name, and other details. I'm passing it as a prepared statement. I'm setting the string, then executing this prepared statement. So basically, what I'm doing is I'm just executing the query. So that's what we have to do for any JDBC application, either it is SQL or Oracle. So we need to have some JDBC, sorry, SQL rule, and for that SQL rule we need to pass some parameters. You either you can have a prepared statement. Usually prepared statement will be the uh, preferred one. Then pass the required parameters and required inputs. So in this case I'm creating the account. If you want to disable, you can again use update query, and for again you can have delete query as well. So other thing is like JDBC operation provisioning. The other one is in this rule I'm using a global one. So for each thing, let's say for create, I have one rule, means I'll get the account request, loop through it. If the account request is create, the same logic which I have used here I will use here. And if the operation is modify, you can have something. If the operation is delete, as I mentioned, you can have delete from this table when the where the employee ID is the prepare statement one. So I will get the identity. Using that identity, get attribute UID, I can get the UID, assign it to some variable. Then create a prepare statement. For prepare statement, set the string, means whatever the question mark, how many question marks you have, you need to have those many parameters, so you can execute those things. The same thing you can have for modify, enable, disable, anything. The query will be like this, like inside the new entry to the table, modify the entry, delete the entry. Means based on the operation you can have the um, things. Like in this case, like provisioning result, you need to pass the things which you need to return is provisioning result, saying um, yeah, result you'll be creating status complete committed. So if there is any error, you can say that like we got error. Maybe I have it here. Yeah. Set result status is committed, otherwise status is failed. So the result will be result dot set status, then provisioning result dot status failed, status committed. You can get those things in the Java doc, which I already shown you before. Like you'll get all the required methods, um, static strings, all from the Java doc. So depending upon your execution, if there is no error, you can mention status is committed, or you can say status is failed. The return you have to return that result. So provisioning result will be return to IAQ, and IAQ same thing will be mentioned in the request like committed or failed and all. Yeah, for all provisioning rules, the things which you need to know is like how to retrieve the account request from the plan, or how to retrieve the plan from the plan. You will get the identity, account request. From account request you can get the operations, and attribute request. You can get the attribute request operation, what value you are setting, what attribute you are setting, and all you'll get to know. Using that you can do anything you want, like all these cases, like we are modifying the attributes, we are creating new users in the JDBC applications and all. So these are the use cases. Like JDBC, this is how we need to follow. And before provisioning is just an example. You might have those cases or you might not, but it's just a sample. Using this, you can do other cases as well. In this video, we'll see some certification rules. So certification has some 10 plus or around 10 rules, like pre-delegation, exclusion, auto sign off rule, auto close rule or and sign off rule, identity selector rule, identity trigger rule, and there are customization, entity customization, item customization rule and all. I will pick only few here, like 6, 7. I will show you like how we can utilize certification rule for our requirements. So I guess I already did pre-delegation and exclusion rule. So, but again, I will go through on high level, like so why we need exclusion and pre-delegation rules. Like let's say if you want to exclude some items or some users from a certification, like entity based, like let's say you don't want to certify some entitlements of some applications, so you can specify those things in custom file. There will be a custom object, there you can add a entry with a key. So for those entry for those particular application, the IAQ means if you add exclusion rule, IAQ will exclude those things and it will be logged as well. Like you can check what are the items got excluded. So you can use some certification exclusion rule to exclude any items from the certification. Let's say you triggered a manager certification for some users, and users has some dummy entitlements or some entitlements which is not required. Um, Certificate like certifying, and also in those cases you can exclude those things from the certification. You can do that for users as well. If you don't want to include users also, you can add it in the certification exclusion rule. So here I have created some custom object. It contains exclusion list, and there will be application as well. I'll check whether user has like means IAQ has custom object or not. Then I will iterate through I will iterate through all the items of certification. Then I will check whether the certified instance is of like uh, data owner certification. Then entitlement map is not equal to null and size is greater than 0, means the custom object. Then again I will check whether the item application name matches with the iterated one. Then like as I got the item here, with item I'll iterate. So with certifiable I will get the entitlement. I will get the means I will add it as the entitlement snap. That snap I will check with excluded entitlement map from the um, custom object we have received. Means if both the things match, like if it's application, then um, required certification, then I will see like I'll get the entitlement name. You can see excluded entitlement list is not equal to null, and the name of the entitlement which need to be which is getting certified, means in the item list. I'll check if both are same. The return item will be means we have to remove the item, means items we have to remove like it dot remove, then add it to the exclude list, means we have to create an exclude list, means that will be the return item as well, like it will be stored, but the return item will be explanation, means the exclude items to exclude and item will be set here, like you can remove the item if all the condition matched, then add it to the exclude list, then add the explanation, means explanation will be logged. So when you trigger the certification, do you, like once that it is scheduled, you can, there will be a link to check all the excluded items, and which will contains the list of excluded items with the explanation. So this is what this is all about, like certification exclusion rule. Like based on the condition, like if you want to exclude anything, you have to iterate the items, like items dot iterator, that item based on the entity, like you can check the entitlements, and if the user, you can check based on the items. Then like let's say if you want to exclude for all the application, you can exclude. If you want to exclude for some entitlements based on the name and all, you can use this logic. Then pre-delegation rule. Here again, delegating the certification item like entity to another owner. These are the inputs like state, entity, context, certification, and the return will be recipient name, recipient description, comments, whether you are reassigning, and certification name. So here again, I have some conditions. So what I'm doing is, if identity is inactive, if C level, if it's a higher level, and email is missing, then I will be routing it to, or reassigning it to, or delegating the certification to a work group. So first we need to create required things, like as I mentioned, I will check whether a user has email or not. Instance of string, I'll check whether user has email or not. Then the level of the user, then again inactive, I'll be calculating inactive of the user, like get attribute certified dot is inactive. If it is inactive, it will set it to inactive. Missing email, like these things I will be initializing in before itself. So if it matches, like you can say this whole thing will check whether user has email, and if it is a C level or not, those things. So C level in the sense, like there will be a level for the manager identity. C level, you can see it get from attribute manager level. If the manager level is higher, then I will be excluding, means I will be delegating it from the certification. Means this is high level like thing. So top, like basically what you have to do is, you have to prepare the return map. Same for the delegate in the exclusion rule, you have to exclude the item. Means for excluding, what you have to do, you have to remove the item and add it to the exclude item list, and create, like build some explanation comment. Here you have to uh, send the return map which contains recipient, whether it's need to be reassigned and not delegate, and certification name, and who will like what is the comment. So these things need to be written, like you need to means return map available, like the available return map. For that you need to prepare these things, means create the map, then with this map add required things like comments for all the condition which were, like as I mentioned, like this is my case, like you can have only one case, like inactive usually you can add, but again the C level, missing email, again there are a number of cases, like if user is VP, or user is not available, user is, again in this case also you can create some custom file. In the custom file you can add a user, set of users whom uh, we need to delegate if the certifier is in that custom list. So create a custom object, add some owners to it. If the certifier is present in the custom object, again delegate it. The same approach can be done here for both the cases. Then we have other auto close. Automatic closing, like if you have enabled automatic closing, in this case what I am doing is I'm just disabling the active directory application account for the user. So certification dot get entities, if the entity is not complete, and during auto completion what it will do is it will get the entity, and if it is not closed, then I will get the application. Using identity service, I will get the links. For each link, what I'll do is I will, like, if link is exist, then I will disable the account. Like I'll just use provisioning plan. Using provisioner, I will execute that plan. Means I'm not sending it to the like IAQ, is directly using provisioner to uh, disable the account. Then auditing it, means I'm using audit event to audit, like I'm saying, like certification auto close rule, then disabling unactioned identity. So in case of means if any item is not like user or certifier not taken any action, then using auto close role, if you have enabled auto close role, you can do these things. Like again, you can send email, you can, instead of doing all these things, you can just audit as well. Or you can send email saying these things were not like no action taken for these entities, so you can notify the required people or admins and all. This is all about, again, auto close rule. Basically I'm just iterating through the entities and I'm checking the status of the completion. Then on sign off rule, like again sign off rule, once the sign off is entered, like once the certifier signed off the certification, if you want to send it to another level of approval, or if you want to audit it, or if you want to send email, notify, or you want to do any extra things like custom things, you can do it on sign off rule. Here I will be sending it to another certifier, like admin itself. Like once the sign off is done, I will be routing it to then certifier, that is all access admin work group. I'll get the signer, then I will check certification, get sign off. So usually there will be accounts for each sign off. Like let's say uh, first certifier sign off, the count will be one, then goes for next and all. So final sign off already done, return null. Otherwise, if the sign off is like if the sign off size is one, then what I will do is I'll get the entities for each entity. I'll get the items, and action is revoked account or is remediation. Find revoked items. Then I will put identity name. So as I mentioned, during sign off, or like after sign off, if you want to route it to a next level of approver, you can do these things. Like you can just send the identity name, put the result, means create a map. The return argument will be identity name or identity. So you just need to pass the identity name. So it will um, set it for next level of sign off. So that whoever the owner or certifier need to sign off again after first sign off. Then I have a identity selector rule. This can be used in identity triggering, like lifecycle event trigger also. Like again, certification trigger also. Like whenever there is a certification or event got triggered, if you want to select a identity based on some logics, let's say if you want to trigger the event only for some particular application, if there is a change in attributes or based on some condition, custom condition, you can use identity selector rule. So here what I am doing is, if user has w account, um, then and not status is not active, like it is not inactive, and the immediate offboard, like this you can ignore. Again, his status is not inactive and he has w account, I will be sending true, means the return output will be true. That is like select this identity. So if user has a W account, so again I'm getting application object, then using identity service I'll be getting the links for a particular identity. Then I'll be checking whether user has that account, particular account, and has the native identity, and native identity contains the particular DN, which contains, means you can do it for admin accounts and all. This I'm just checking if it starts with W hyphen. So it has W account. If it has W account, then select that ID. Otherwise, no need to select. Otherwise, send false. Means if it has, it will send true. Otherwise, the default value will be false. This can be used for scheduling certification for particular users, or triggering in the event cases. Like if you want, like in case of life cycle events, if you don't want to select all the IDs, you can utilize identity selector. Then like identity trigger. So this will be again if the life cycle event is rule based one, then based on the logic you need to, if you want to trigger a life cycle event, you can utilize this one. Now means what I am doing here is like I'm checking previous identities status. Inactive status is inactive, and the current new identity status, if both don't match, like if it is the previous identity is inactive and current one is not inactive, then the account type is user, then send a true. That is, send the result true, so that rehire will be triggered. Otherwise, no need to trigger the rehire. Inactive. Yeah. So again, this can be used for lever as well. You can check previous identity and current new identity value, and based on that you can trigger lever. And in case of lever, again you can check the application account status, like whether the current status of application is active or inactive. If it is active, then trigger the lever after matching all these conditions. Yeah, this is all about certification rules. Like there are again couple of or some other rules we have for under certification, but these rules are frequently used in IIQ. In this video, I will see about notification and assignment rules. In this type, like there are 6-7 rules, like how to assign work items or certification items to a new owners, add a email list, like send the recipient and all. The first one will be email recipient rule. So in this rule, what we are doing is I'll be creating um, recipient list. So the input for this is like context and log as usual, the item, um the cert items, and the list of list of recipients. Either it's a string or a list of strings. So I'll be returning the identities to the like it is a recipient, like we have to send who are all need to receive a notification for particular item. Here I'll get the item notification owner. First owner will get, then I'll be creating a recipient list. You can create any empty list, then get the owner name string, then recipient list. I'll be adding it to the recipient list. So here you what you need to do is like you have to prepare the list and return it. Like either you can have a single string, means if you want to send it to a single owner, like single manager, or only if you want to send it to the owner, you can do that. Otherwise, if you want to send it couple of teams, it's a CC one, like you can add a manager, you can add owners into the CC list. So here the first thing is I'll be adding owner itself. Then if it is not work group, then I'm getting owner's manager. Then I'll be assigning that to the recipient list. So yeah, this is a simple email recipient rule. So the same rule can be used in the certifications as well. If you want to um, send email to specific people, and you need to dynamically select, or you need to select the recipient through rule, you can use a recipient rule. You can see this rule is used to select an identity or list of identity who will receive the email. So this is a simple one, creating recipients through a rule. And other rule is like escalation. The escalation rule that occurs when work item owner becomes inactive. So uh, the rest of the rules are like this only. So I will be or the return will be identity or identity name. So it's a work item, new work item owner, new manual work item or approval item owner. So uh, the return item will be identity name itself, yeah, most of the time, or identity. So we have to reassign the owners. Maybe owner is inactive, or you don't want to like, if the owner belongs to some category like VP level or level higher level, you can reassign it to a group of people or a single owner. The same thing I'll be showing for rest of the types. Like we have work item forward rule, fallback rule, and all. So the same thing will follows. Like the return item will be identity itself, the new owner. So in this case, like the first thing I'm doing is checking the type of the certification. If the item type is certification, the work item type, then I'll be initializing some default work groups. As I mentioned, I'll be assign means we can assign the item to admin group or certification admin group, like any work groups you can assign. Get the owner. If the owner, like I will be getting the owner's manager details. I'm checking immediate termination, means these are the attribute you can check whether user is terminated or not. If user is terminated, and check the certification here, means the case is I'm checking whether the certification is role based or identity certification. So item is certification related, then get the cert, then check remuneration type and all. So it's a role certification. If the application owner type application owner type identity or manager, then it's a identity certification. If it is business role composition or business role membership, then it will be a role certification. Means you don't do much changes, but this is the use case we have, like forward to fallback approval if inactive or null. So if the owner is null, if he's inactive, then I'll be assigning new owners to a certification work group. If certification new owner is null again, I'll be sending it to some admin work group. If it is not identity certification, then I'll be sending it to admin work group. So usually, a high level, if the new owner is inactive or null or terminated, something like that, you need to assign it to the new owner, the escalation one. The same thing can be utilized in the other case as well. In the approval assignment, it's another rule. Like this rule, all the owner to SP admin, the to allow some customization of approvals, like you can update the descriptions or you can update some arguments and all. So in this case, like I'll routing all the approvals to SP admin and updating the uh, description approval reassignment rule generated. And the next two are fallback approvers. So fallback in the sense, let's say no one is there, who will be the owner? Like usually it will be support team, admin team, or IAQ admin team, governance team will be there. So you can have a single work group. A rule like this is a rule, like I used to pick a fallback owner for a work item in case current owner will cause self certification. So these things, again, if it is self certification, or if the work group owner is like he is certifying himself, those things and all, we can use this. Means I have to fallback work item forward rule. Like let's say if the certification type is manager, then Again, it's the identity type, like I'm checking two condition whether the certification type is either identity or manager. Then get the manager is not equal to null, assign it to the manager's manager. So you can see this example fallback rule, like owner's manager as a new owner of the work item. If owner has no manager, then fallback is the admin of the certification. So if there is no manager, then I'm assigning it to admin. So most of the times we do this, like there will be a fallback. Let's say when you're submitting request for any um, a user, and let's say any entitlements or role owner is inactive, or the one entitlement doesn't have any owner. In that cases, like we need to specify some fallback owners like admin or work group, something like that, so that um, it won't be orphan work items. The last one will be work item forward rule. Means you can have this as a global work item forward rule. So there are many cases, like I can say if, as I mentioned earlier, like if the owner is a higher level, like VP, director, and all, if they don't want to approve it, we can reassign it to some specific work group. And you need to write a logic, like if the work item assigned to work group and work group doesn't have any owners, then reassign it to some other work groups like admin work groups again. Means how we need to do is we need to check the owner. If owner is work group, then iterate through the work group membership. If there is no membership, then reassign. If the membership, the work group membership, the any member of the work group is inactive, you need to send it to some other people or reassign the ownership. So you need what it means, you need to delegate it, like you need to assign it to someone else. Those things can be done in work item forward rule. Here I'm just checking whether owner has an email or not. If there is no email, means I'm assigning it to a work group. So means it's a simple case. The same thing can be utilized in many cases. As I mentioned, you can have a custom file, and if any assignee is in that custom file, then you can route it to someone else. We can check whether work item owner is inactive or not. And again, let's say you might get a requirement for some people, like don't want to send the approval for them or work item for them. Means we can have we can set a forward rule, but again, this is a global forward. This will work for all the users, for all the work items. Whenever the manual work item or approval work item is triggered, this rule will be called, and this happens through perform maintenance task, like if the global rule execution is checked. This need to set from global settings. We need to set global forward rule. So these are the rules which are comes under notification or assignment rules. As I mentioned, basically what we are doing is we are reassigning work item or manual items or approval items owners. We are just reassigning to someone else based on some conditions, like inactivity, or like email is not there. If you don't want to assign it to some particular people, uh, we can reassign. So yeah, this is what assignment rules does. So the links for this code will be in, like, the all the codes are posted to GitHub, and the link is pasted in the description. And if you want to have any video, please add it in the comments. This video we'll see about owner rule. I don't have much examples, but I will show you where we can use and how to use it. The first one will be owner rule, and the next two will be policy owner and group owner. So basically, the motto of this rule is like we need to assign a work item to the or the form or approval form to owner, specific owner, like how to do that through a rule. So that's the whole point. So in this example, so I'll be assigning if the type based on the inputs, like the argument, role, object involved in the provisioning, application, template, and field. If it is role request, then get the role owner. If it is app, then get the app owner, then identity manager. If nothing works, then identity manager. And again, owner you can give, if owner equal to null, then assign it to the admin. So this is a simple rule, but this is not the use case actually. So what would be the use case is like in every organization there will be a workflow for owner approval, like identity request approval, and they might have um, a customized as well. Like maybe in this case you can see we have a step called approval. The name will be owner approval. So in the case of owners, for this we need the owner rule. Like we can have a owner here, owner rule, then which will calculate the owner, like whom we need to assign the work item. So it depend upon the request item as well. So what we are requesting means we'll have a approval set. On the approval set, we calculate the owners based on the item. Let's say if it is entitlement, so the owner will be different, and depending upon schema as well. Like each role will have means bundle will have a different schema, like a manager, owner, only owner, secondary, primary. It differs from organization to organization. So we need to calculate whom we need to assign this work item. And to assign any work item we need to have some logics, and that logics will be built through a owner script rule. Like we can have a owner rule here, we can specify the rule, and the rule will calculate based on the approval set item, like approval items or yeah items under the plan. So each plan it will go through and it will calculate, like it will get the item whether it's a role or entitlement or anything, and based on the request type we will have a custom file for it. Means if we are following the out of the box framework, then it's fine. Means usually we'll have a SSF framework for approval, where we'll have a custom file, we'll have some workflows, custom workflows and all. And in all the places we need to have a owner assignment, like owner rule. Based on that owner rule, the owners will be calculated. The same goes for other places as well. Like this is the one of the case. The same goes. There is another one called approval, security office approval. Here also you can see owner is calculate build security officer approval. These are all out of the box, but usually organization will have their own logics to build the owners. Let me see, we do manual action. We have here also you can see rule build manual action approvals. So those are the things which calculated based on the rules. So, and other two cases are policy owners and group owners. For policy, you can calculate the owner based on the rule, and same for group. So, those are the other two cases which rarely used, but you can use those option as well for calculating the owners for the policies and the groups. So, this is a short video on owner rule. We have only three rules under owner rule type. So, the most or frequently used is owner rule itself. In this video, we'll see identity attribute rules. Like we have, or these rules will be used in identity mapping type or account mapping one. So in the identity mapping, to calculate a value for that attribute, particular identity attributes, so we need to have some rules, or we can have some rules like for both source and target. So one will be like listener. Okay, first one will be identity attribute. Identity attribute target also is there. Like we can have some logics for updating any attributes, identity attributes. So in the same way, we have a listener and a link attribute. Link attributes in the we will use it in the account mapping. Listener, let's say if there is any change in the attribute, if you want to trigger anything, like if you want to trigger email, if you want to notify a manager or any owner, you can have the listener. Or there is a change in the authentication process. There means if you have any form when the user is created for authentication, if you have any form, like let's say user has created some questionnaires like date of birth and other questions, when there is a change in that process, you can have a listener to make changes and all on that cases, like authentication changes. But identity attribute changes usually will have in the identity mapping. Under identity mapping, when you add a new attribute in the source or a target, you can have this rule. Like let's say if you want to, means if you are getting any values from the target, let's say from active directory you are getting um, expiry date or termination date or any date, and if you want to format it to the required format, IAQ format, then you can use this identity attribute rules. And if you want to set a display name for any user, from the identity perspective, I'm saying, like, you can use identity mapping rule. And again, in this case, let's say some of the applications, they won't send a status in required attribute. Let's say some applications send it as enabled, is enabled, status and all. But to make it a single value, you can have a mapping rule. So the same thing I'm showing here. One of the value from the attribute will be enable. So you can see in the input are like environment, identity, link, application, attribute definition, then attribute source, old value and all. And the return value, attribute value, means value, what value you are setting for that particular attribute. Let's say the attribute here is status or active, and based on that, like status, let's say the incoming data is enabled and what you want is status. Depending upon, means you are just getting true and false, you are not getting whether he is active or not, but you want to store it as a active and inactive. In that case, you get the value, that's the, let's say, get attribute enabled. The first thing I'm checking is whether um user, like the link has this, or there is a link or not, then link has this attribute or not. If both matches, if both are not null, then get the value, means active will be assigned, means it's a boolean one. I will check, get the enabled. Let's say if it is false, active is false, then it will say inactive. If the active is true, it will say active. Means the identity attribute, whatever the identity attribute, either it's a status or active, it will store it as a active itself. Instead of true and false, we are mapping, or we are modifying it to active and inactive. So the same way you can do it for any link attributes. So if you want to modify to your own way, like in this case I'm getting true and false, the boolean value. Maybe in your case you are getting active and inactive, means you are getting link dot get attribute, for enabled you are getting active and inactive, or enabled or disabled, like that. Based on enabled and disabled, you need to change it to true false. The same thing can be done here, like if um the same thing, like if the value is, let's say, status dot equals ignore case, you have to use ignore case, then check, you need to return true, you need to return false, you need to have the second use case. The second use case, like instead of this, I will be having string status, empty string, then I'm getting value here. So I'll be getting status value. So means it's a second use case. So I'll be not using. So if we are getting string value, then we want to modify it to boolean depending upon the requirement. There are two use cases. If you are getting string in, if you are getting boolean and convert it to a string, you can use this. If you are getting string and then convert it to boolean, again you can use this. Like I'm just giving example here. It might be disabled also, means instead of active, it will be enable also. And the next one will be creating display name thing. So let's say if you want to have a display name identity, you need to concatenate first name, last name, and middle name. the same thing I am using. I am getting attributes. This is for from any application, means under global setting you will have identity mapping. So from that identity mapping you need to specify from which application you need to do this. For each application you can have a separate rule, and using that, let's say if you are getting from active directory, from active directory means that will be the source. Let's say workday is a source, then again you can have based on that. Let's say active directory is a source, you'll get the first name and last name and middle name. Based on these three values, first, last, middle, you have to create a display name, that is first name, first, middle and last. Means I will be concatenating all these three and I will be creating display name. This is another use case you can have. The next two will be a link attribute, and this will be under account mapping. So again, same goes here. If based on the incoming data, we are having or we are updating the link attributes. So in this case, what I am doing is, if the link attribute is account system, or the if the account type is a system, so we are setting it as a system account or service account, like that. Otherwise it is not a service account. So based on the incoming link data, we are modifying or we are updating the link attributes. So yeah, so I'll be passing, like, let's say link is not equal to null. If link dot get attribute account system is not equal to null, then get the value. If it is true, then return true. Otherwise, return false. Again, I'm checking another thing, like if the type will be system, then I'll be passing it as true. System accounts, like that. And the last one will be, as I mentioned, listener. Listener can be done in, again, multiple ways. Or like you can add it in the value change rule as well. Whenever there is a change in any attribute, let's say some attributes are you need to send an email for any change in some attributes, or you need to notify user, you need to do something on change of values. You can use these things here. I'm just getting value change, and also the input will be identity, attribute definition, attribute name, old value and new value. So based on the change, means there is no return for this rule. So here you can see authentication questions. I'm checking if there is a change in authentication question, like let's say input value is date of birth. The three things I have: date of birth, place of birth, and SSN. If there is change in these three things, this listener will be called, and the authentication answers will be updated. You can see question is updated, set answer. So update answer, that is if the answer, if the question is for date of birth, and I will be passing identity and new value. The date of birth is changed to new value. Again, SSN, place of birth, and all. So here again I'm calling query options. Query options, in that I have authentication questions. If I get that authentication question, I'll be updating that. Means I will be removing old answer. Then I'm updating the new one, new value. This is how I'm utilizing listener for updating authentication question. As I mentioned, we can utilize for other identity attribute change as well. So these four rules are there for identity attribute changes. One is for source and one is for target, then listener and link attribute. So this all comes under identity attribute types. Yeah, this is all about this, and I have covered most of frequently used use cases. Again, if you have any suggestions, or if you want me to create any videos on any particular topics, you can add it in the comments. And again, I will be doing videos from the Eclipse itself. So I will try to cover all the topics from here. So what you need to do is, you just need to import this, means you can model this, and you need to import it in your local system, and you can try how it works. And if you get any error, you can add it in the comments. I can reply, and all. In this video, we'll see form related rules. So these rules need to be referenced in the form. We have like a field value rule, a validation rule, allowed values rule, and owner rule. So all the rules here, like either we can have a script inside form, or else we can have a separate rule which can be referenced in the form. Yeah, so the first one will be field value. So this field value rule is for like application provisioning policies. So in the application provisioning policy, there are sections like creation, update, group related provisioning policies. So for those policies, let's say when there is a requirement for a new account creation for any particular application, um, we need to populate field values for those applications like first name, last name, employee number, user type. There are like a number of field values we need to populate during the creation of accounts or update or any modification of any accounts for a particular application. So inside application, so I can show you that like inside applications, let's say for LDAP, we have a provisioning form here. In the provisioning form we'll have a form, and object type is account, and type will be means operation type will be create. For create, we will have some field values like name, dn, password, cn, given name and all. For this we need to populate the um, values like for employee number we need to get the values from identity using apis or methods like get attribute, or we need to define some values for these application specific attributes. So instead of having this, we can specify a rule here. Instead of script, we can just reference the rule, and we can have a single rule for all these attributes. And for those attributes, I can say there is a failed value. Like you can see, the arguments will be identity, the link, managed attribute, provisioning, project, plan, account request, object request, bundle. These are the inputs. We have some set of inputs. The one which we want is like field identity and all. So here, first we need to specify the field names. Like if you want, we can do that. Otherwise, we can directly use the field name. So first we initialize first name, last name, display name, managed attribute. Like whatever the attribute you want, you can specify it. Then get the field name. So each field name we need to get, like let's say if you have referenced first name or wherever, yeah, email or first name, anything like if you have referenced a rule for a first name or given name, so the field name will be the given name here, the name which we have specified here, name. So field name, then get the value of a field name, then you can you can get the identity. With that identity, if like you can build the logic here, like if the field name is first name, means instead of uh, first name here you can give given name, so that you can check here if the field name is the what we got, like if it is given name or the last name and all. So send the first name of the user instead of having a script here, identity or get first name. Instead of having things here, we can directly or we can have everything in a single rule. Like for each field, we can populate the value, we can return the required things like first name, last name, display name and all. Instead of having a separate script, you can have a single rule and reference uh, rule, the the field value rule inside the application. This is how we can utilize field value rule. So the only thing we need to do is here, like get the field name. With field name, check required field name. Like let's say if you want to populate for employee number, here you have to specify employee number, or directly you can see if field name dot get equals ignore case, and if it is employee number, then return employee number or employee ID, or let's say if it is manager password, anything. Like for any field you can populate the things under this rule, and you can return the required values. The next two rules will be like we'll do same thing, like one is allowed values, another one is validation rule. This will be again for a form itself. Like in the form, if you want to create a drop down list for some entitlement values, like if you want to assign all the entitlement values and entitlement name, attribute values application. So you can have a single allowed values rule and you can reference this rule. The again the approach will be same. Get the field value name and come and check whether you want to populate for any particular field. Here again I'm getting the field name. Then there will be application field as well. Attribute means if the current field is attribute, then what we are passing is there will be a return list for everything. So you can see return list is there. This return list has a value of unique set. Unique set will came from attribute name. So what we are doing is if the application is not null, that is there will be a field called application, then get the related like application details. For that application, particular application, what I'm doing is I'm querying the manage attribute, means I'm getting all the entitlements. I'll be getting only attribute property here. So query options, you can see query options, I'm adding filter list is like entitlement related application will be the application which is selected in the other field. So here I will be returning all the attribute name of the entitlement. The same goes for value. If you want to populate a value for any field, entitlement values, depending upon the application selected, means application ID will be applications, then attribute selected in other field, then it will search, means again we are doing manage attribute. MA, that is a managed attribute, get value will be returned to the field. So, so usually it will have a attribute field, application field, values field, entitlements field. For values field, we will be returning managed attribute value. How we will get the managed attribute values is like query options. For query option, filter list will be application and attribute selected, and for these two filters, it will return the managed attribute. So depending upon again application values and attribute, we'll be building another filter, the same entitlement one. So we'll get the all the entitlements based on these three values selected. So all three means you can have a number of things like depending upon your field value. This um, rule will be referenced in the form where the field contains application and entitlements, values, attributes. These are the field, and the value return will be based on the query option and the selection made on the other fields. Means first user has to select application, and then when he selects on the next field, the field value will be populated. That's why it's like allowed values based on the value selected applications. So only search for attribute if application has been selected. Otherwise, it won't come here. And if application is selected, then value will be populated based on the query options, that is selected application. All the attributes is selected, then selected and sent to the field. Then again, user need to select some of the attribute. Based on that attribute, IQ, like again, this rule will create or populate the values and entitlements and all. So you can have a rule like this. Means if you want to populate allowed values based on the conditions, or let's say if you want to pull all the application from IIQ, you can have a separate rule and you can populate it. Otherwise, means this rule is again a single rule and which will generate values or return the list of values for all the fields in the form. The next one will be validation rule. So usually form will have validation rules like validation script. So again, all these rule can have a script as well. Instead of referencing this rule, you can directly add it as a script. But if you want to make it like, let's say if you want to create a rule and you can generalize in many forms, you can utilize these rules. Like in validation rule, let's say in a field, any field, you have to restrict the character and you have to check whether the selected value present in IIQ or that attribute is present in IIQ. Let's say if you want to add user to any group and if user is already present in it. So in the validation rule, you can check whether user is present or not. If it's present, before submitting request, you can show the message saying user already present. So remove users from the list. So those things you can do. Again, you can calculate the things. You can build the logic saying, in this I have created a logic simply checking missing values for required group name. If value is empty, again, if the character is less than 8, I can say group name must be of 8 character or less than that. Like if it is greater than that, like let's say if you have provided a group name greater than 8 character, you can show the message. A similar thing you can do it, like you can utilize this rule and build any logics as per requirement. You can see, you can check for alphanumeric characters and anything, and you need to build the message and you need to send the message. Like here I'm just sending the message. Otherwise you can build the message and you can send it to the form. So these three rules we have under form related rules, form and provisioning policy related rules. Another one is again owner. Owner we have, or I have shown in other video. So it's just generating owner for a particular approval form. You can pass anything. You can generate a owner based on the form or based on the access request type selected, and you can generate a owner and you can return the owner. Otherwise, if you want to send it to a specific team, you can um, do that as well in the owner rule itself. Means owner rule, most of the times owner rule will be used in the workflows and all. So utilize those owner rule to generate owner for any particular approval or manual work items. Yeah, these are the rules under field value and provisioning policy rules. Uh, so in this video, we'll see workflow rules. So anything which is related to workflow, like for calculating variable values or transition rules or inside step execution, anything which are related or which are inside workflow or considered as the workflow type. So simple examples like you can consider here, like LCM provisioning workflow. So there is a initializer. So we will be adding some scripts for, like, for variable value initializer. We will be adding scripts sometimes. Like let's say if user display name is empty here, it's just calculating the display name. So that's how we initialize values, or means sometimes we hard code it, static values we can give, but sometimes we need to pass the, or we need to write the scripts, like we need to calculate the values for the variables. So in that case we can use things like, in the LCM provisioning you can see he's checking whether display name is not equal to null or like it's void, then pass the identity display name or calculate it. Usually again you can do like this, again get that uh, identity, then get the display name. Same thing can be done for anything like passing the manager name, email, first name, last name, anything. This is the example here. So using this, like this is for identity display name. Same thing can be done for any attributes for identity. Just create the variable, add the script, the source, then identity name will be passed for all the workflow. Most of the workflows, I can say like identity name will be there. Using that identity name, get the identity, then like retrieve whatever the attribute you want. Like in this case, it's just a get display name. You can get the first name, last name, manager name, email, or any attributes, links, anything. Then the transition rules, like the one rule which I mentioned is like here you can reference the rules, but for variable I'm just referencing the, like I'm just adding the script. Instead of this, you can have rule as well. The same thing for her transition. That is, whenever you want to transition from like from one step to another step, like from the start to the next step. In case of joiner, like in my case, like I'm just checking whether user has a UID or not, like there is a ID or not for that user. If it is not there, if it is empty, then I will trigger the joiner, means I'll go for a building plan and or calculating UID. So in this case, like there is a script, means I have to calculate, I have to build some logic to find whether user has UID or not. So I have to write some script, I have to write some logics, some statements and all. In that case, it will be considered as a rule if you reference it. Okay. So then the same thing goes for anything inside this. You can reference a rule for any steps, like how to calculate the values for anything. Most of the times, like it will be added in the rule library. So there will be rule libraries inside that. We usually we will add the methods and all. But here directly you can reference the rules for any step. Sometimes we point the methods which will be in the rule library. And yeah, so the next thing, if like usually what happens is there will be a SSF framework for approval. So inside SSF framework, this folder will be provided in the SSB, which is available in SailPoint campus. So you can download that. You will have SSF features for frameworks and tools and all. Inside that, you will have approval framework. Usually, company will onboard this framework into their environment, like how approval workflow. So the small example I can give is there will be a dynamic approval. So step called dynamic approval sub workflow. So with that, there will be like calculation of approvals, like whom it need to go. Let's say for role or any entitlement, the schema which you have provided is like manager and owner, or only owner only, uh, second or one, whatever the custom work flow and all. You can mention it for everything. There will be a custom file. Inside that custom file, I can show if I have that, but this is how it will be like. Custom file will be there. Inside that custom file, the flow, like for each type, manager type, what needs to be done for owners type. Means usually when you submit a role request or entertainment request, it will be a access request. For access request, what are the schema you need to consider, and also you can see custom variables like approval type, current approval type, and all. So in if you open this workflow, there will be a steps called like get approval types. Here we'll be referencing, or SailPoint reference the get approval type step rule. Then next approval type rule means it will just consider like what is the approval flow, like manager, owner, and all. So if it is manager and owner, then who is the manager means that will be calculated in the next step, like approval. Do approval step. There will again get approvers means list of approvers will get as an object. Then it will means we'll be creating approval object. Then our like required workflow, like work item will be assigned to the approvers. That's how flow works. Like when you submit the request, IAQ will create identity request. For all that identity request for approval, it will check what is the flow, what is the approval schema, like manager, owner, etc., etc. So with that, then if it is manager, calculate if just manager. If it is owner, calculate the items owner, like role owner or entitlement owner or whatever it is. Then secondary owner, custom owners, anything. So just get those owners, then as like add it to the approvals, get the list of owners, then create a approval object and all. That's how they build. So if you see this get, let's say get approval type step rule, you can see here approval step rule is all SailPoint provided one. It will be under SSF framework. Samples will be there, configure will be there. You can see all the required things will be there, like how to create the objects, all the objects. This is what I was saying, like approval object mappings. If it is they have given samples, you need to utilize it. Schema will be there, default approval types. Again, you can add whatever you want. Then a map request type approval types and all. Then yeah, sample type for the sample. Let's say it is access request. There will be a pre-approval rule and the notification and all. So this is the sample which SailPoint provided. Using this, we have to modify the custom file and onboard the framework. Yeah, means this step will go to this rule. It will check the approvers type and all. Then get the approvers schema, and with that schema, get the owners, create a approval object, assign the approvers to the work item. So this is how it calculates. Means maybe in the future I will make a separate video on this. But uh, this STD get approval types step rule means it's again a rule. You can reference here as well. Instead of doing this, you can reference. But we can say in some type like this will be a workflow rule as well. Like there are number of rules like this calculating approvers, um, assigning required owners to the work items and all. It will be considered as a workflow rule. So same thing like transition rule will be there, workflow rule will be there, variable value calculation rules. So these are considered as a workflow type rules. And yeah, means you can see those things in SSF framework. Like example, SailPoint only provided. You can just go through and you can model it and use as per the requirement. Yeah, this is all about workflow type rules which are used in IA. In this video, I'll show you some policy rules. So, policy rules can be utilized for creating policies in IAQ. There are like a policy rule, policy violation rule, policy notification rule, owner rule, and all. Notification is just to send the notification whenever there is a policy for any user. You just need to add the required recipients and all. And owner rule, you need to assign. Owner required owner for the policy. And the policy and violation is to trigger violation means policy rule will be used in advanced policy type, and violation is just to set the descriptions, constraints and all. I will be showing a policy rule here. Means there will be cases like whenever a user is trying to submit some application request, and if a user is not having that particular application, we need to throw the policy violation. And let's say the other example is user is trying to submit admin account entitlements, and user is not having admin account. Like what happens is if he submits, IAQ will try to create a account in that application, but due to some policies like there will be some auditing things and all, right? So instead of creating admin accounts directly, trigger the violation saying user is not having admin account. So before submitting the request, admin accounts need to be created. Or like there are many cases, if we don't want to allow certain people to submit any request, we can throw the policy violations based on some conditions and all. Here is a simple example. What I am trying to do is, if user is trying to submit a LDAP entitlements or a LDAP request, and if user is not having an account, IAQ will throw a violation message. So usually what happens is in the policy process, like I already made a video on this, but on high level, IAQ will trigger policy violation check twice before and after request. Like before submitting the request, in the sense like let's say you have submitted LDAP entitlement request. So what IAQ will do is, without that LDAP entitlement and with entitlement. So that's how violation or IAQ will check the violation. So with entitlement, in the sense it will temporarily add the user to that entitlements, and application will be created. Means how application will be created, it will have empty or null ID. Same for assignment as well. Like user will have temporary set of that entitlement selected, entitlement or role selected. So how we can check in policy violation rule is, we need to get the list of links for those user, then check whether user has a null link ID for that application. If that is the case, then user is trying to submit the request for the particular option and user is not having that application. So that's what I am doing here. First, I will be initializing two variables like has account and LDAP request. Then I'm getting the application, required application. We can pass anything, like as I mentioned, you can check for admin account as well. Then I will be using identity service class to get the links. So service dot get links, I have to pass identity and the application we got. Then if user has LDAP links, then it will say has account and it's LDAP request. Then if user is not having account and if it is an LDAP request, then violation will throw. So link dot get id if not equal to null, it says user has the account. And in this case, like, we can modify. It's just a simple example. It says user like get id equals null. I'm just saying it as LDAP request, and you can change the name saying LDAP request, but user not having account. So I'll check whether user having account. Like, user is not having account if there is no link, means id is not null. If id is null, user is submitting the IAQ LDAP request, but he is not having an account. So then require LDAP account violation will be thrown. The same thing, you can use the violation rule for adding constraint description and all. The other rule which I have mentioned, like policy owner rule, and this is a simple rule just to assign owner to the policy violation. So here I am just adding it to admin. If owner is null, like, I will add it to the admin work group. So these two rules, and with this, as I mentioned, we have other two rules for policy, like notification rule and violation rule. And most of the time we use a policy rule itself for creating new SOD policy for any users with a type advanced. This we will say about task completion email rule. This comes under miscellaneous rule type, and this is out of the box rule. The rule, name will be like a task completion one, and we have to configure this under system configuration. You can see that, like, if you go to system configuration and you can search, it comes under task completion rule, and it has some email template as well, and result max age and also this. Whenever task completion happens, if we add the notification, means if we enable notification, then the email will be triggered for the provider recipient and all. So you can use this rule, or you can model this for your requirement, like how to send emails, like while sending email, what are the things you need to use and all. You can check using this rule. So that's why I just took this rule to go through. So here, first we check the configuration, whether like notification is enabled or not. Then basic message repository will be initialized. Then again, identity name, email template, and recipient. All three things will be retrieved from configuration itself. Like, usually name, the email template, and all will be available in the uh, system configuration email template. You can see the task status one. Then the main points are like get email recipient, get email template, get identity name, send email on task completion. So we can go through these methods now. Um, we have, let's go one by one. Get email address, you get the identity. Means to get the identity, we use context dot get object by name or ID. Here you are passing identity name, so we have to use get object by name. Then object util get effective emails for identity. Means if it is user, like, get the email address, then return the addresses. And next will be email template. So task definition, result dot get definition. Using definition get string task completion email template, or otherwise we can get it from sysconfig and get string task email like email template completion email template. So once we get it, we will return it. Means these are the methods inside the rule itself, like to get the email template, email address, and here get identity name. Again, completion recipient, you can do, like, you can see task definition, inside definition get argument, configuration dot task completion recipient. Like, you get the recipient identity name and get the identity using the system config or definition. So all these things are, means basically this rule is out of the box one. So SailPoint itself provided this rule. So if you want to trigger a email, after, or if you want to notify after task completion, you can like SailPoint will use this rule. And again, is email notification is enabled. It will check whether the notification is enabled for uh, any task and all. Definition result dot get definition. Definition again with the task definition get string task completion email notify. Again, if it is null, if this is null, then system config get string task completion email notify. So these are the parameters, configuration parameters, and with that, the string will be there. Like inside, when you configure or when you create any task, there will be option like always failure warning and all. So based on that, um, the email configuration will be checked. So here you can set see always failure and warning. If you have configured a task completion email, like if you want to notify an administrator on failure, task failure, so all those things will be checked here. You can modify if you want to add other options as well, or means let's say if you want to trigger a different option, like if you want to add some other options and all, you can use or you can model this uh, task completion email rule, and you can create a customized one based on the requirement. And the at last, like if you want to send email, like what are the parameters you need to add, like task start time, end time, the status of the email, all are added to the arguments, and then arguments we need to pass it to the some email options. That email options we need to pass it to send the email notification thing. So this is what you need to understand. Like we need to create an argument. So what are the argument we need to pass it to email template. In that email template, we can utilize as per our requirement. Let's say if you want to send the name of the executor, a role, like a rule, or anything, if you want to specify in the or if you want to use those things in the email template, you can pass it through arguments, and that argument you need to pass it to the email options thing. Then email options has to be passed as a parameter for send email notification. So notify email and options we need to pass, and email will be triggered on task completion. So basically, two things we need to understand, like where we need to configure this task completion email, and what are the email templates we need to use, and how to configure it from a task definition. Like when you create a task, so based on the notification string, like whether the notification it will trigger during a failure, or every time you need to trigger a notification of a completion, or only failure or warning you need to send, you need to configure it in the task itself. And this is the, like as I mentioned, this is the like inbuilt one, or inbox. It comes with a package itself. So if you want, you need to modify, like have a copy of this and customize it based on the requirement. So in this video, we'll see how to trigger PowerShell script from a SailPoint. So we have after script and before script rule. That's regarding to like PowerShell thing. So the native rule in the application you can configure, like you can add these rules actually, like which will trigger after like after provisioning or before provisioning of any plant in IAQ. So this requires to import three classes like RPC request, RPC response, and RPC service. So these three things will be required to execute the PowerShell script. So how it works is when you trigger this rule, this will call PowerShell rule. Means we have to specify the PowerShell rule as well, like which will call PowerShell rule, and that PowerShell rule will be executed in the IQ service. So in the IQ service, like IQ service will create a temporary PowerShell script inside IQ service, and it will execute that PowerShell script and will return the required result. So we need to initialize request, then like a service, and call the response using these three classes. So basically, it's just a simple thing. First, we need to initialize the PowerShell rule. Like you can see PostScript. So you need to initialize this, means you need to create a map. Means this is a parameter which will be passing to the um, RPC thing. So we need to build the map. So I'll be passing PowerShell rule, then application, AD application you have to pass. Then if you want to send some attributes, like if you want to send some parameters, so what you can do is you can create account request, like set application as IAQ, then add identity name and set operation as modify, and then add the attributes. You can add the attributes here. So whatever the attributes required, you can add it, and those things can be retrieved in the PowerShell script. Then add the account request to the map. So we have added post script, application, then request. Again, as I mentioned, like we have to use these three things. Like first, we need to build RPC service where we pass IQ service host and port, and again, like you need to specify script here, executor, run after script. Like you can do run after script or before script. Like usually this will be executed after or before provisioning in the application. With RPC request, we need to pass data as well. Means the map which we have created, then the response. So response, like once we execute it, we get the response. Using that, we can get the message and anything which we got from the IQ service execution. So for response, the service which we have initialized, we need to use the service and execute the request. The service will have IQ service details, and the request will have things which we need to send it to the IQ service. So service dot execute the request, and which will be stored in the response. So this is how we create a rule for calling PowerShell from IIQ. So when it is executed, this will go to IQ service, which will create a temporary PowerShell script. Then it will execute it. So again, time and all we need to means how long we need to wait. Means IQ need to wait and all need to specify in the PowerShell rule itself. Means the PowerShell rule means like if you want to execute anything on Active Directory, we can use this. Okay, like let's say if you want to get the last logon of the user, if you want to delete, create any directory, like Windows directory, you can utilize this. And there are some things like adding retention policy, means Microsoft Exchange thing. Like if you want to connect to Exchange online, you can utilize these things. Um, these are the use cases. Like if you want to get the last logon from all the domains, means latest last logon from all the domains for any user, you can utilize this. Like last logon, it's not from like if you do it, you will get the last logon for IQ service or the domain which you have specified in the IAQ. But let's say there are 40 domains. If you want to get a latest last logon from um, a user once from a domain for a user, you can get this. Means what you can do is you can loop through all the domains and use get AD user PowerShell command and get the last logon for any user. In this case, I'm just using a simple one. I'm just doing a search for the user, but um, the main thing of this video is to show how to call the PowerShell from IIQ. So you just need to have a PowerShell rule, then pass some account request with attribute request and all. So here we need to specify the timeout. So usually you can give it 100, 200 and all. So here the sample is 100. Like usually you can give 4 minutes, 5 minutes, like that. Like you can give it is like 240, something like this. Or if the PowerShell script is taking time to execute, you can give more. And extension will be .ps1. Program need to be executed PowerShell.exe. Object related script and disable is false. So here these things to read the environment variables from the XML reader. So these two things, request object and result object, means to retrieve the account request which we passed. You need to use this. Then from the account request object, you'll get the attribute request. Using that attribute you can search anything, or else you can directly get the native identity as well. Just get the native identity means which we have passed here. If you want to do anything on user, otherwise you can pass attribute request. From the attribute request, you can retrieve the values. So value will be stored, and again you can retrieve like this. So here I'm just doing get AD user and filtering the user based on the email, which is just a sample example. This is not a use case, but use case, as I mentioned, is get the last logon or updating anything on exchange online. You can use like hide from gal or removing the directory to check anything on active directory, and where you can't use out of the box features, you can utilize a PowerShell thing. So once it is executed, you can send the output like using result object, get message like if it is success, pass the success message. In case of failures, you can send error message and all. And the same thing you can retrieve from response object, check the message. If the message list is greater than 0, then print the things. Yeah, means like some of the modules also you need to install on IQ service, like Active Directory model, like get the AD users to perform any Active Directory um, commands. You need to import Active Directory model, exchange online models, and all. When you want to utilize PowerShell and use those commands, you need to import some modules. And if you want, you can add log path also. It should be in usually in the same IQ service where you have installed IQ service. You need to add the loggers and all, like means logger. It's not related to SailPoint. It's a different one. You just add um, a rate host and all to print the things into the file. Yeah, this is about calling a PowerShell rule from IIQ. So, which we need to use some of RPC classes like service execute and service um, request and response. And you need to have some basic knowledge on PowerShell, or some of the comments will be available on online. If you want to get any users attribute, or if you want to set anything on Exchange Online, you will get the um, commands. You use those commands in the PowerShell script and execute it from um, IAQ. Means you can schedule this, or like you can schedule this, you can add it in the workflow as well. The same command can be used in workflow as well. Same, copy paste it to the workflow. Whenever workflow is called, you can use this. And again, you can schedule the rule using task rule runner. So however you want, you can utilize this thing in IAQ. Thank you.